Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Soul Refresh, your oasis for spirit filled wisdom and encouragement on your leadership journey. I'm super excited about this episode. I have a special guest here with me. I have Don Gleason joining me. He's a leadership trainer and coach with Achieve New Heights. Welcome to Soul Refresh, Don.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited as well, and I love the title, Soul Refresh. I
Awesome.
think it's so important. We're going to talk more about that, I know, but
I know. Well, welcome to the platform, Don. Thank you for accepting the invitation and coming on. Since you're new to the Soul Refresh audience, please introduce yourself to the audience.
sure. I'm a 27-year Air Force veteran. I wasn't planning to get in the Air Force. I graduated college in '82, and it was the recession during President Reagan's first term. Unemployment was like 20 some percent,
Mhm.
much bigger than today. But took the opportunity to get a job. I didn't want to go back to college and get a master's degree. 4 years, turned to 27,
Wow.
and just grew. And I transformed. I transformed who I was during those 27 years. Brought him out for 9 years in Booz Allen Hamilton as a management consultant. And now it's been almost 8 years since I've been doing my own business as an entrepreneur, Achieve New Heights, doing training and coaching, as you said, particularly in the career transition space with military veterans and spouses.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Oh, and married for 44 years next month with three kids.
Wow.
Three kids are, boy, now I'm going to be in trouble. 42 this year, 40 this year, and 37 this year.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations
Yeah,
and
yeah.
happy early anniversary next
Thanks.
month. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing to
Actually,
celebrate.
it's this month.
Oh,
We're
it's this
already in
month.
March, aren't
Okay,
we?
so
Yeah.
happy anniversary. Happy anniversary month. Awesome. That
Yeah.
is
So
great.
here's the funny part. We talked just a conversation. She loves daffodils, and daffodils are not available on Valentine's Day. And by
Oh.
the time our anniversary comes up in a couple of weeks, they won't be available. So I have to be checking every day to see when
Make
our
sure you get
stores
those
start.
daffodils.
So I got to get some daffodils. Yeah.
There you go. Wow, that's awesome. And I hope you and your wife have a great time enjoying and celebrating your love and your marriage and your union. Wow, that's amazing.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Just writing
Well,
myself a note for daffodils.
get the daffodils. I'll email you in a couple weeks. Don,
That's
did you
right.
get the
Did you get
daffodils?
them? Yeah.
I need an update at the end of the month. All right, well, let's jump in. Thank you for your service, by the way, your
You're
military
welcome.
service, much appreciated. And
Thank
as you
you.
mentioned,
Appreciate all the support of yourself and all Americans. And it's so different than what it was in Vietnam, right? People came home to being spit on and screamed at, and there's just a
yeah,
lot more respect for what we do and
yeah,
appreciation.
yeah. No, that's great. And you transition. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about transitions. But
Mhm.
tell me, let's start. Just tell me, how did you get into leadership development? You mentioned being in the
Mhm.
military. So how did you transition
Mhm.
into leadership development?
Sure. Um, when I joined the military in '82, I was kind of an individual contributor for a little over 2.5 years. I was in the environmental shop, which is what my skill was, environmental engineer. And then
Hmm.
the squadron commander pulled me up to be his exec officer for about 5 or 6 months. And then I transitioned into a leadership role in the squadron readiness section. So it was all about preparing our teams to go to war if they were called upon. And our job in the war is we call it prime beef, beef being an acronym, Base Engineer Emergency Force. So we
Okay.
would go into places and we would set up base camps. So it's the tents, the bathrooms, the showers, all the facilities you would have like in a little city, right? And I got to do that twice in 1991 in Turkey. We had 2,500 people, and then we had almost 10,000 people in our camp. So they get to be little mini cities. And so our job was to prepare these folks to training, equipment, and to get them out the door so they can go do their job. And I had a team of five of us, and I really enjoyed it. Four NCOs and myself.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, you don't always get the best cream of the crop, but they were sharp guys, right? But they maybe didn't fit in the shop that they were in. And I melded them into a team, and we had a great time. Because I think I really enjoyed the connecting, the communication, all those things that you think about with leadership, and we can talk more
Yeah.
about that. But I really enjoyed those aspects, and it felt right. And
Oh, good.
I just kept taking those opportunities.
Oh, that's amazing. You mentioned something about, preparing for war.
Hmm.
It just made me think, how do you, when you think about preparing for war and all the things that you had to do for
Hmm.
preparation, how do you, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, from a leadership perspective, from a
Hmm.
management perspective, what are some of the similarities between those two, preparing for war and leadership?
Well, I think one is involved in the other, right? Um, when you lead people, you are motivating them, influencing them, inspiring them, depending on who you listen to. John Maxwell likes to use leadership as influence.
Hmm.
Good friend of mine likes to say leadership is inspiration. But you're inspiring people to do either what they really want to do, or maybe they don't know they want to do it. But it's things that we have to do. And frankly, we all signed up for it. So I remember in the summer of 82 when I was getting ready to join the military, my wife and I talked and I said, you know, I can't do this if I'm not willing to go to war. That's what we do. If I can't do that, I might as well be a government civilian. They don't go to war necessarily. And she
Hmm.
goes, no, my dad's in the Army, in the Air Force Guard, Air Guard, and I support it. I said, okay. Because if I deploy, and I did deploy, like I said, twice in 1991, I left her in Germany with three kids,
Mm.
long ways away from her mom and my mom, right? She had the support network of friends, but everybody was really busy. So she had to be in on it. So we had to really think through that. And I
Yeah.
think that was leading myself to make sure that I was committed to it and then leading the team of, hey, here's the mission, here's the vision, this is what we're going to do, here's the things we got to do to prepare for it. You could kind of manage the tasks,
Yeah.
but the communication and the vision was more about the leadership piece. I like to take the picture of being out front, pulling people along versus being behind them and kicking them. You
Hmm.
know, I like to lead from the front. So being out there every day, doing what needed to be done, showing the way.
Hmm.
I think I I didn't really find a real challenge moving into that role.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. No, that's pretty good.
Though
That's
I can't say I had a lot of training for it in terms of it's not like there was a mentor or somebody who was talking to me every week. I was watching, I was asking questions, I was observing,
We're
you
learning
know,
on the job.
learning on the job. We called it Squadron Officer School, which was our first level of PME, professional military education.
Hmm.
Throughout your route of 27 years, right? I had three different schools I had to go to. Here's the funny part. I always love these little things. I joined the military because I didn't want to go get a master's degree. I now have three master's degrees.
Look at that.
It's funny.
That
So,
is funny,
yeah.
actually. That is funny. So, three master's degrees. That's awesome.
Mhm. Yeah.
You transitioned out of the military. You worked for Booz Allen. You
Hmm.
transitioned into working for yourself. Um,
Hmm.
so, let's talk about transitions for a little bit.
Sure.
And sometimes transitions happen for all different types of
Oh,
reasons.
yes.
But what makes seasons of transition so challenging from an identity standpoint?
Oh, identity. You had a good one. And
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go two parts here. I think one, they're challenging. Excuse me. They're challenging because sometimes it's not what we chose.
Yeah.
We may get laid off, fired, the job may end. You may come to the end of your working life, like I'm 66 and kind of moving into semi-retirement. And you start to think about what is I want to do. And we're not
Mm,
really ready for it. I think that's the biggest thing that makes it hard is we're
yeah.
not ready for it. Um, Identity to me gets into we put our identity, our who we are, we think we are the military,
Mm,
the rank, right? Rank is a big thing in the military. The position, commander, right? Section lead. When I
Yeah.
retired, I was the division chief in the Pentagon over all the readiness and emergency management for the Air Force. So we were deploying people into Iraq, Afghanistan, Djibouti, down into South America. We were deploying people everywhere around the world. Um, 35,000 some active duty military, if I remember the numbers right. Um, so you start to think, wow, huge responsibility. I'm really important, right?
Yeah.
But you're not. You're just a cog in a wheel. And if we go back to the prayer we did just before we started, right? We think about ourselves humbly, which
Mm.
is not thinking less of ourselves, not thinking less of ourselves, but thinking of ourselves less, right?
Yeah.
So we're not the important piece. It's the team that's the important part. So um, if we don't keep that in proper perspective, it can be really hard. I was talking this morning to somebody about a story. Brigadier General joined USAA, the big insurance company for the military here in San
Uh-huh.
Antonio, one of the big employers. And he only lasted 6 months.
Mm.
And it was because he expected to have a driver and a secretary and an exec officer and all these positions because that's who he was prior.
Yeah.
And that's not what vice presidents get at USAA or really probably anywhere. I certainly didn't get them at Booz Allen. They didn't even get their own secretary, right? They had an executive
Right.
assistant they shared with other people, sometimes two or three other people.
Hmm.
And so it's all about cost management and profit management, et cetera. So I think if we let those things go to our head, we have a real problem in that transition because we expect
Right.
certain things because of who we think we are.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's a great point about expectations, and even how you mentioned the transition sometimes being not what you expected or
Hmm.
wanted, or
Hmm.
something turning out not how you wanted it to go.
Yeah.
As people, let's say someone's listening and they're transitioning into something that they didn't want, or
Hmm.
is less than what they desired, how would you encourage them to stay rooted in their identity, especially as a Christian, in their
Hmm.
identity in Christ?
I think the most important thing we need to do in career transition, particularly getting out of the service, but anytime you're changing jobs, is get back grounded in who you are.
Mm,
So I like to think about it from the perspective of what do I want to do next? So you have to look at your skill set. What am I skilled to do? What am I interested in doing? What does my personality fit me doing? Because at some point, it's got to feel right, right?
yeah.
It's we talk about experiences. What experiences have you had that it's like, hey, I don't want to do that, but I love that, right? So you
Hmm.
try to mesh all those things together. And I think from a Christian perspective, you get back into the Bible. I just spent a weekend with my pastor and about 12, 14 other people in December, and we went through this unique program. It's under the Foursquare Church that we're attending. They have this program, and it helps you kind of figure out from a biblical perspective, what your purpose is. I
Hmm.
think it's so important that we figure out that purpose.
Yeah.
Um, short on that. Too often when we're in an organization, we think our purpose is the job that we're in, and it's not. That could be your mission. That's how you're implementing your purpose, right? I joined the leadership team for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society Visionary of the Year program a couple of years ago. And the very first night I was there, the leadership team director walked over and handed me a little piece of paper. It was in the form of a blood drop, right? Leukemia, lymphoma, but blood cancer. Hands
Hmm.
it to me and he goes, write something on that and put it on that board over there. I was just like, well, do you have any guidance? And nope. He says, I don't have any guidance. I just want you to go over there. And he walked away. And I was like, and as I walked over to the board, I'm going to say God put it in my head because it just popped in. I help people live their best life.
Mm,
And it just hit me. And I thought, wow, that so fits blood cancer because it happens so quickly that it develops over time, but we don't know it. We have a headache, we have a pain, we have a back
yeah.
problem, right? And at some point we go in and we find the markers for blood cancer, and immediately they put him in the hospital and start chemo or some type of treatment. And you could be there for 4 to 6 weeks. This year in our campaign, we have two 7-year-olds. One of them, he loves the word baby, baby Steph, 7 years old. He was playing baseball last May, and he's kind of having a jaw, like a toothache, right? It was really getting there. And they had checked it out. They went to the doctor and it's like, ah, it's nothing. Here, take this painkiller and stuff, and think it'll go away. Well, they finally go back in and they did some more blood work. They go home, and the doctor a couple of days later calls him up and says, you need to go to the emergency room
Mm,
right now. I will meet you there. So she scrambles, calls the husband there. Everybody's going there. And they had two other kids, right? So I think he was the youngest of the three. So it's like 7, 9, 11.
mhm,
And they go through a bunch more tests. And finally, the mother's like, what's going on? He's like, well, we think he's got cancer. We've just confirmed he's got this type of cancer. We need to start some treatment. He's going to be in the hospital for a number of weeks. And then he can't go back to school, right? We can't risk him
yeah.
getting any type of cold or anything because will lose his body defenses. Well, when I think about that, I go through that story to say that's certainly not living their best life. He goes from playing in the championship for baseball for his age group to the hospital bed within a week,
Mm,
and not, so it just resonated with me. And then I thought about it from the military transition perspective. This is all going through my head. I'm writing this on the board, right? And I'm thinking, I help military find the job that really resonates with them so that they can have the life that they dream of, right?
mm,
It's the right, it's the job that provides the right money, the right communication, the right interaction to be who they are, to bring
mm,
the best out in their relationship, whether it's spouse, friends, significant other, hobbies, and have that best life. So that became my purpose, right?
mm,
So the things I do are missions to help me get to that purpose. And I think if we spent more time in the military, really understanding who we are, and especially when we're transitioning out of the service, if we spend that time thinking about who we are, I think we would be better off picking the right jobs. Because here's a terrible statistic. 45% of military leave their first post-military job within 12 months.
oh,
Almost
really?
half. And 65% leave within 24 months. That's two-thirds.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of questions why, right? And I think it's part of we never go back and figure out who we are and find a job that aligns with us. They just go for the identity, right? The rank, the position, the authority,
Hmm.
because it feeds the ego. And it was interesting when I came out. I had a bunch of people who were going for vice president jobs, and they were bugging me. You need to get a vice president job, and I'm like, I'm going to get a job that I love doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to be doing the things I don't love. I get paid better than I've been paid in the military, which has been really good.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a great retirement, which I do. I'm good, right? I get to build teams. Everything I wanted to do, I got to do.
Yeah.
It filled my soul. I wasn't worried about the rank and everything else.
Yeah.
I think you have to
No,
know who you are.
yeah. No, that's really good.
And I'm not saying anything bad. If people want to go for vice president and that's the thing that motivates their soul, go for it, right?
Right. Be
But
vice president.
yeah, but when you get into a job that doesn't meet it, I want you to use that as a stepping stone
Hmm.
to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. No, that's good. I was going to ask you a follow-up question
Sure.
about um, sort of like knowing who you are. And so I have a cat who just wants to come on screen. And so that's what's
Go for it.
happening over here.
What kind of cat do you have?
She's a white short-haired cat.
Okay.
And she just, so that's, I'm trying to keep her off, but she's determined to show herself. Um,
She's going to get there.
she is going to.
Yeah.
So my question was going to be for someone who feels as if they're maybe in a transition or not, but they're sort of like feeling lost, whether they don't know their purpose or they're kind of just not quite feeling aligned with who they are. Like, what's your best, or what's that one tip that or that first thing you would tell them that they should do to be able to find who they are or get back to who they are?
Ooh, the one tip.
Or
I don't
two,
know.
one or two.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem I see when people are looking, they get they start looking for that job. Whether they get out of the military, they get, they leave a civilian job, they get let go from a job, right? They immediately go home, they start writing their resume,
Mhm.
and they start applying for jobs.
Yeah.
And they don't know what they want to do. They don't know who they are, right? Because even if you did this 2 or 3 years ago, you've changed along the way.
Yes.
So the one tip I would say is either get to know who you are or update who you are, right? What are those skills, those interests, the experiences, the personality? Because your personality can change along the way. I
Yeah.
I used to be a clear in disc, an SC, but I
Mm.
could I could feel my eye rising. Well, there's the
There
key.
she is.
I, I could feel my eye rising, and now it's above the midline, so I'm an
Really?
SCI.
SEI. Okay.
But it was so interesting when they gave it to me as an SC. It's the name Peacekeeper.
Hmm.
And as soon as that they said that, I thought back to all the conversations I had been in where people started arguing, and I was trying to bring the peace
Hmm.
to the conversation. And
No,
one
I
time,
get it because I'm an SE too, so I
are you okay?
so I get it.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
one time, this one young lady that was I was trying to bring she just looked at me. She says, "Sometimes we have to have these arguments." I thought, well, maybe you're right. Which now, reading Patrick Lencioni's book, Five Dysfunctions of a Team, he
Hmm.
says you have to have conflict.
Yeah.
It should be productive conflict. I love that arm coming down.
She's like
Um,
photobombing.
yeah. So you got to have conflict. You can't make it personal, right? It's
Yeah.
got to you got to come to a point where it's productive. But I thought back to that and was like, yeah, man, that was really training me and growing me. It was so good.
Hmm.
So I think the key would be once you go back and figure out who you are and then into what you want to do. And I'll give you an example real quick. And then network with the right people and then build your resume to get that. Too
Yeah.
often we build a resume to get anything. Well, when you're marketing to anybody, you're marketing to nobody.
Nobody. Hmm.
So here's the story I love. I was talking to an Air Force meteorologist, a lieutenant colonel. He was getting out, great experience, was really looking to do some stuff. But he said clearly, I do not want to be a TV weatherman. And we said, tell me a little bit about that. What's going on? So he told me, and I said, well, what kind of experience have you had that you really want to do? He goes, oh, that's so easy. I got to be the meteorologist for the oil spill horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. I was working directly for the three-star general, and he challenged me to use meteorology and weather and water flows, air flows in a different way to help predict where the oil is moving. And we found it 100 feet down at the thermal incline in the water.
Hmm.
Because we were thinking it was going away, it was dissipating. Well, no, it was just a big layer down here. So now we could go clean it up. And he's now a GS-14 with Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, helping use meteorology for all these natural disasters that we have, preparing for or responding to.
Hmm.
So I think that's a perfect story of him going back, knowing what he didn't want, zeroing in on what he did
Right.
want, and then going after it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. That does
Mhm.
make sense. And I really appreciate you honing in on taking that time to either rediscover who you are, update who you are, but there does need to be that time, that assessing
Mhm.
time, because you're right. You lost your job or whatever the situation,
Mhm.
and the immediate thing is to must update my resume, must jump on LinkedIn, must
Mhm.
start scouring Indeed. You
Mhm.
jump into action mode without
Mhm.
actually taking some time to really think.
Mhm.
And I really like, I say all the time, sometimes you have to slow down or take a step back to go forward. And people just think sometimes faster isn't always better. You
That's
really
right.
do need to take the time to do the thinking, to do the internal work, because then you're more clear and you're able to look for what you want and having that, you cast such a wide net, you wonder why you're applying to 200
Mhm.
jobs and nothing's working because you know for whatever reason your net is too broad. So
That's right. And I
that
think
does
there's a
make
way to
sense.
say it also to capitalize on what you just said. If you don't know why you left the organization, why you didn't like what you were doing, if you
Ooh.
don't stop and think and pause to think about
Hmm.
that, guess what? You're going to get into that same job again
Yeah.
and you're going to be unhappy again and you're going to leave it. So it's
Yeah.
better to stop and pause and figure out, wow, I don't like that. So, short example, I 2019 I started thinking about retiring, and I always wanted to be active on some boards, and I got involved on a project management institute board here in San Antonio,
Oh, okay.
and it was for outreach into universities, and I thought that'd be fun, working with college students, helping them understand project management and stuff. Well, they told me, hey, go on the website. There's all kinds of information to help you in the process. So I went, I could not find it. I went back to the president of the organization who told me, and she says, yeah, it's there. I said, can you point me to it? She goes, no, I've never seen it. I have no idea where it's at, but I'm told it's there. So I called Pennsylvania to Philadelphia, and I said to the national, I said, hey, where's it at? And they said, well, I'm going to be down there in a couple of weeks. I'll show you. They come down and we're talking. I caught her in kind of in sidelight during the meeting, and I said, hey, can you help me with this? We talked. She goes, oh, I have no idea where it is. It's like,
No
well,
one knows where it is.
so you keep telling me there's this help there for me, and that just sat raw with me. If you're gonna help, if I'm gonna do a job for you and you got material, I want you to help resource me, train me, right? Or
Mhm.
just tell me you don't have it. I have to create it. I'd go create it. But so I ended up resigning. It was a 2-year position. I resigned at the 1 year point. I said, I can't do that.
Oh, wow.
And I've had a number of other positions where things just didn't resonate with me. And
Hmm.
I said, at some point I gotta step away from this because it's here's the thing. Usually when that happens, I start having nightmares in the middle of the night or not sleeping.
Mm. So
Do you ever watch Back to the Future?
yeah, yeah.
McFly! Wake up!
Yeah, that is interesting. But though, sometimes it's hard to let go of that security.
Hmm.
And sometimes, as they say, it's what's the saying? You want to deal with the devil you know, then the devil you don't know. So how do someone is listening to this one day and they're in that situation, they hate the job, hate the boss, hate the everything,
Hmm.
but they just can't let go. How would you counsel them? What would you say to them?
I'm going to draw an experience from my dad being in Korea and a number of other people who've gone through that.
Hmm.
They come back with some type of PTS, right? Post-traumatic stress.
Hmm.
And it's one of those, just like you said, you either deal with it now or it's going to deal with you later. And my dad was able to suppress it. He came back in 53. So he was in the Philippines when it all kicked off in June of 50. 3 years later, he came home and he suppressed it for a number of years. But after he retired, he went to his first company reunion of the
Hmm.
military unit that he was with. And it kicked in dreams and nightmares, and he'd wake
Oh,
up screaming and sweats. And my mom was like, he suppressed it for a long time, but it was still there. So he had to now deal with it. And I think, and it's so much worse at that point because you've
wow. Hmm.
suppressed it. And
Yeah.
it's done so many things inside of you, I don't know if I'm qualified to talk about, we can talk about. Um, but I think when you're leaving an organization, if you don't stop and think about what you're going to do, what the reason you left it or what wasn't right, you're going to jump back into that and it's going to deal with you again. And
Hmm.
you're going to wake up in the middle of the night like I did. Ended up being in some jobs with some people that just didn't feel right. I was waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares and sweats and all that. And I stopped and I said, I have to pay attention to this.
Hmm.
Something's causing this. This is not normal. And I've had to decide to leave organizations. And sometimes I ran my own nonprofit for 3 years. I probably knew at the 1 year point that the partnership was not working. I
Uh-huh.
tried to work within it for 2 years, which was 23 months too long.
Mm.
I should have left,
Yeah.
because immediately upon my leaving, my resting heart rate went down, my sleeping improved, my blood pressure went down. I started watching all these because I now have the Fitbit watch, right?
Okay.
It's like, wow, isn't that amazing? Just within days, how
Mm.
my whole health started improving. And I was like, that was the right decision.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah.
And you're right. Your body, you can definitely feel
Hmm.
things in your body before you even come to a realization or
Hmm.
a conclusion.
That's
So
right.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I want to transition a little bit into
Okay.
still related, just sort of that concept of self-care. I think self-care is becoming more,
Oh, yeah.
I want to use the word popular, but more people are
Mhm.
talking about it and realizing the importance of self-care. I'm imagining it's the same in the military, but maybe harder to do your self-care in the military. I don't know. But what are um, from a transition perspective, what do you
Mhm.
see as the value and the importance of self-care as you're
Mhm.
transitioning, as you're having an opportunity to hopefully reset
Yeah.
and chart a new path?
Couple things. I think it is easier to control it in the corporate world
Hmm.
because you do have a little bit more authority and ability to say no. Because you can
Mm,
always put your 2 week notice in, right?
yeah.
And they know that. In the military, for officers, they got it, depending on the service commitment, they got you for at least another 6 to 8 months because you apply to get out of the military and they can say yes or no. And if you're enlisted, you have to go to the end of your enlistment, which could be 4 years or 6 years, depending on your career field. So you're going to be there for a while. So you have a lot less ability to say no. Um, oh, I forgot the question. So
Self-care.
self-care, thank you. Um, but I think it's so important, even in that environment, no matter which one you're in, to be
Hmm.
thinking about that. We got to constantly be growing to learn how to deal with stress. I started having peptic ulcers in 10th grade.
10th grade.
10th grade. And I was talking to my dad, and I went to the doctor, and my dad just says, you need to learn how to relax. You need to learn how to handle stress. So we talked about breathing and relaxing and meditating and all those things. And it worked. So it's interesting now, 20 some 30 years later, I'm standing next, I'm a group commander. I got 1,600 people, 7 squadrons. We're going through some stuff. And I'm standing next to the wing commander, and he goes, you know what bugs me? Nothing seems to rattle you. I said, sir, I had peptic ulcers in 10th grade. I learned how to handle stress. I'm not saying that I do it perfect every time,
Right, right,
but
right.
I separate between okay, things I got to go take care of and what I caused. And I just create a plan and I go after it. And he goes, my job's going to be to try to get you to be flustered.
Mm,
Okay, that's really what you want to do. There's better things to do. But so I learned how to do that. And I would I would go to bed at 10 o'clock. I'd get up at 5. So I was getting 7 hours of sleep. I'd go to the gym first 2 hours of the morning. I would work out hard. I might run. Um, would try to eat right. A
mm.
long story of how my my diet changed every year over 27 years to be able to control my weight because I almost got kicked out of the Air Force on day 2 at officer training school because I was my max weight came down, but my actual weight came up, and luckily I was right at the level. If I was a quarter pound more, I would have never had an Air Force career.
Wow.
So I learned very clearly how to control that. So I had to do those things as well as the personal appearance and the physical appearance, not being overweight, etc. So I always focused in on those things. They're very important to me because the Air Force made them important to me.
Mm,
Um, and I think part of that was balancing time with the family, right? Trying to be home at dinner. I
yeah.
think I might have said that a little bit ago. Trying to always be home at 6, maybe 7, right?
Mhm.
Have time with the family, get involved with my daughter. Her last 2 years, she was on the drama team, theater
Oh,
in high school, and I was on the stage crew. So we'd go over on weekends, and here I was, the colonel in charge of all these people and all this, and I'm over there nailing boards, and it was kind of therapy, right? I got to meet some new people, and it wasn't about, hey, the colonel's here. This is Don's here, right?
mhm.
So I started that. We talked about identity earlier.
Yeah.
I started my identity being I'm the husband of Karen. I'm the father of Georgia. I'm on the stage crew as part of the team. And it wasn't about me leading it. It wasn't about being called Colonel. It was about being called Don.
Mm,
And I started working through that. So I think all of those things play into self-care. It's the mental, it's the physical,
yeah.
etc.
No, that's really
It's
good.
so important.
That's good. And you said something that I want to ask you about. You
Okay.
talked about you mentioned that the military sort of made certain things important to you,
Hmm.
and even the healthy eating because you're trying to get the weight. So what about those people who don't have the military to make them
Oh,
make their
yeah.
health important? Um,
Mhm.
what kind of advice would you give them, or how would you try to get them to you know um, realize the importance of
Mhm.
taking care of your health,
Yep.
whether it's your mental health, your, nutrition.
Mhm.
You mentioned you run and you were physically active, all of that stuff. But if,
Mhm.
I don't have the military to make me do it.
Yeah. I think you have to go back to, I'm going to use Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why,
Hmm.
right? You have to kind of figure out what your purpose is, what your why is. Now, purpose and why can be, they're similar, but can be a little bit different. In this case, who do I want to be? What appearance do I want to project?
Yeah.
And for me, I wanted to project that well groomed, shaven, slim. We call it the gig line. It's the line of your shirt down to the zipper of your pants. It has to all be in line and even your belt buckle, right? All
Oh,
times that gig line has to be straight. So it's all those little things, your shoes shine. So it becomes a piece of pride to me. And I see so many people get out of the service and they grow their hair really long and it's really kind of frizzy and they grow their beard way down to here and they gain a lot of weight. And I'm kind of like, it bugs me. If that's what they want to do, that's great for them. But I can't do that.
hmm,
It's just not who I am. So I think you got to figure out what it is you want to be. How do you want
yeah,
to project yourself? And then you got to create the system to go after it. Just like any habit, just like any goal. And it's easier to keep it than it is to gain it back.
yeah, oh,
So,
definitely.
yeah. So, but I think it all goes back to that. I'm thinking about the book Think and Grow. I've had a lot of books here, haven't I? Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and he says in there you got to have that overwhelming, burning desire. It's got to be a flame inside you that's burning that's going to drive your actions. Because you're not going to get out of bed at 5 in the morning to go to the gym if it's not something that really means something to you.
Yeah.
You're not going to avoid that second beer or that chocolate cake. I'm a chocoholic. I love it.
Guilty.
I have not had a cookie now in over 2 months because I had a bunch over the holiday and I was down with sciatic nerves. I couldn't work out and I ate too many
Oh,
cookies. So now I'm trying to lose that 10 pounds again. And so no cookies, cutting back on the alcohol. I take a little nibble of chocolate. My daughter left me this whole jar of these chocolate caramel treats.
uh-huh.
They're only about 1 inch square. In 2 months, I've only eaten one and a half.
Oh, wow.
So you create that discipline of every time I go pick it up, I'm looking at that goal, 10 pounds, 10 pounds. I just need just a smidge of chocolate to satisfy my craving. I don't need the whole thing.
Right.
And you have to create that picture of where you're going.
Hmm. No,
That,
that's awesome. That's good.
how do
Um,
you do it? I mean, I don't have the benefit of not being in the military with that background. How do you drive to do what you want to do?
that's why I was asking you the question, Don.
Okay. Okay.
No, no, no. I completely agree with you on finding your why, and having that bigger, not just the goal, but that bigger why of what you want, why you want to do it, that long-term why. I mean, I know for me now, as I focus on my health, I have a 4-year-old son. And for me, I'm like, okay, he's only 4 now. I want to be around for as long as I can be. And so I want to do, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I can at
Mhm.
least do my part,
Mhm.
make sure, I can be around for as long as the Lord allows. But
Amen.
so
And
I
control,
totally agree.
control the controllables, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I am learning that it's all about the systems. Like if
Hmm.
you don't have a system, it's hard. It's harder.
Hmm.
It's hard with the system, but it's harder when you don't have a system. Um
Yep.
so the why in the system is
Yep.
it's like the creating the habits. It's another book, Atomic Habits. It's,
That's
it's
right. There
like
you go. Yep. Yeah, and then you can do habit stacking and some of those other ones, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope we're going to encourage a lot of readers after this podcast.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah,
How many books can we get in here?
that's right.
But no, that's really good.
Hmm.
And I think about we talked a little bit about self-care, and we haven't
Hmm.
touched on burnout specifically, but I know
Ooh,
that's something that a lot of our
yes.
the audience sort of deals with. A lot of folks, whether they're people pleasers or just overachievers, or
Mhm.
they just can't say no to things. A lot of people have that burnout, and they become misaligned, and they don't know how to overcome that or how to deal with that. And I think
Mhm.
nowadays, I think it's you hear people talking about burnout more now,
Mhm.
but I don't know that they're people actively trying to not be burned out or trying to overcome their burnout. So I feel like it's
Mhm.
out there a lot, but there's still so many people burnt out. Like
Mhm.
it's not as if it's not being talked about everywhere. So as we kind of start to wind down, can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about burnout and misalignment? How are those related,
Mhm.
and how does someone get back into alignment?
Boy, that's a whole podcast in itself.
I know.
So
And as I say, as we wind down, here's a
yeah,
whole new can of worms.
we'll touch on it. Maybe we'll get back together for another one.
Exactly.
I think it was Darren Hardy, another one of my mentors, wrote a book, Compound Effect. Has a
Compound effect.
podcast.
There we
I
go.
listen. Yeah, I listen to his podcast every morning. It's just a 5 minute,
Darren
powerful.
Daly.
Darren Daly,
Yes.
powerful. And he talked about burnout is nothing more than a schedule mismanaged.
Hmm.
We people pleasers, we say yes to too many things because we want to please the person that's coming to us to ask us, would we take it on? Versus looking inside of us and saying, is that something
Yeah.
that I would enjoy doing? And go back to the Bible. Is that mine to do? When you come out of the military and you start looking at jobs, I always say, there's so many jobs I can do. What are the jobs that I want to do? It's a much
Hmm.
smaller subset, right?
Yeah.
Can do, want to do. And I think it's the same piece with when people are asking you. And who was it? Somebody else said that, oh, Dave Ramsey, no is a complete sentence.
Hmm.
At some point, we have to say,
No.
no, I'm sorry. You can put the words behind it, right? I'm sorry, that's not something that I feel is mine to do that
Yeah.
really would light me up. I don't think I would do well at it, so I'm not gonna say yes. You can justify it, talk about it, make it feel better, but it still comes down to no.
Hmm.
And too often, again, back in the military, the boss comes down and says, Don, I want you to take this task on. What am I gonna say? No. I remember one time I went down, I was acting division chief for a day in Germany, leading the engineering section. And I went down to a fellow captain. We were good friends. I said, Ray, I need you to take this on. He said, no. I was like, excuse me? You can't say no. And he said, he said it. He says, Don, I've got the following 5 tasks that are due by Friday.
Mm.
Is that one more important than any of those 5? And I thought, no. And he goes, that's going to take me all week, and I'm probably going to work some extra time. So I, I'm not willing to work the extra night unless you tell me it absolutely has to be done and it's more important.
Yeah.
And I kind of respected it. Kind of was pissed me off a little bit, but
Like, who do you think you are?
no, but I had to respect it. It was like he learned to say no, to
Hmm.
control it, because he and his wife had a good relationship. He wanted to keep that going. Didn't have any kids. Not that that matters. He had what he wanted to do. He had hobbies he wanted to do. That
Yeah.
was part of his self-care.
Hmm.
So I think burnout, mismanaged schedule, saying yes to too many things. Go back to 2019 when I was on 3 boards, and it was just like, oh, this is too many, right? And I was having some problems with a couple of them. And I was
Hmm.
like, nope, time for me to separate. And last year I was involved with a couple of organizations, And they were asking me to take on, hey, would you do the financial fundraising for this nonprofit? No,
Hmm.
that's not. Now here I am doing it for blood cancer, but that becomes more of a why for me.
Yeah.
Of I can see the kids in the hospital bed, the young adults in the hospital bed, and I want to help them. The other organizations didn't have that connection for me, so I said no, and ended up leaving those organizations.
Hmm.
So I think being able to figure those things out, and everything we're saying kind of goes back to that. Figure out who you are,
Figure out who you are.
figure out what you want to take on, what's yours to do,
Yeah.
right? Move into that arrangement and find that thing for you that fits your schedule.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you get into it, the responsibilities will grow. The 40-hour
Yeah.
week job will come 50 hours,
Yeah.
60 hours if you don't put some boundaries around it, right?
Yeah.
It's like telling my wife, hey, I want to be there for the kids in the morning when they go off to school, have breakfast with them. I want to be there at dinner when they come home from school and we get to talk, put the phones away and talk.
Yeah.
I want to go to the Friday night football games or my daughter was in the band doing the twirl. She did a lot of dance. So they asked her to be in the band to do the flags. She was in theater. I want to be there. And I
Yeah.
made those commitments. And then, so the things that didn't fit, then I had to say no,
Yeah.
or I had to delegate them. We're not very good delegators.
No, we're not.
And
No, we're not.
I had two deputies and I said, you need to take this on. You need to take that on. And when sometimes my squadron commanders would come to me and say, hey, can you do this for me? No,
Mm.
I can help you. I can tell you where to do it. I can give you some examples, but I'm not doing it for you. Right?
Yeah.
That's something you need to do. But if it
Yeah.
was mine to do, if there was something there that brought up that was mine to do, I would do it. And I still have plenty of stuff on my desk, so I think you got to figure that out. It goes back to self-care, but
Yeah.
from a burnout perspective, if you're not, again, creating that vision, what you want it to be, building the systems, you said it very well, and being able to say no, we will get into burnout. Now, if you get into it, I think you have to at some point be able to recognize it. Always
Yeah.
number one, right? Like alcoholics or drugs. It's addiction, same thing.
Yeah.
Got to recognize it and then start taking steps to get out of it. When I was
Yeah.
having those problems with a nonprofit that I was running, it was my nonprofit. And I had to say, time for me to leave. I need to find a way because I searched, can I kick my partner out? I didn't have any method to do it. Well, what happens if I do? Then I'm going to lose my third partner because she's really more aligned to him than me. I'm going to have to start all over. I have no way to do it. The only way for me to do it is to step
For you
away.
to leave. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote an email to the board. I wrote an email to him. I called him up. I said, effective immediately, you're now the president. I'm out.
Mm.
He says, you can't leave. I said, yes, I can.
Yeah.
And boy, it made a huge difference for me. So,
No, that's good. And that
so
takes courage to leave like that. That's hard.
I hate to say it, kind of it dissolved a friendship there,
Mm.
but hey, I think he's been better because he was telling me that he was starting to go through some counseling because of I was trying to hold him accountable for things and he didn't want to be, and so he was going through counseling and I was going through different stuff. And I was like, McFly, if we're both having troubles,
Like,
let's stop the madness.
why are we doing this?
Yeah. It doesn't matter at that point how much good you're doing
Yeah.
if you're driving yourself to an early grave. Hmm.
Yeah. So that's true. That is so true.
Yeah.
Wow.
Does that get at the burnout?
It does. It does. I
Okay.
mean, it I think you wrapped it up beautifully in terms of
Mhm.
understanding your why, the
Mhm.
self-care, the boundaries, having the system, the
Boundaries.
boundaries are important, the saying no. I think you touched on all of those things, and recognizing it is
Mhm.
important too, because I think sometimes people don't recognize it. You're living through it. You
Mhm.
know something
Mhm.
feels off. You know something feels
Mhm.
different, but sometimes you just can't name it. Um,
Mhm.
so recognizing it
Mhm.
is important too.
Yeah. Would you add anything to that discussion
The only thing I would have
that you learned?
would be like the boundaries piece.
Mhm. Okay.
But I think it was sort of weaved into what you said without
Okay.
saying the word boundary. But I also think too, as the only thing I would add is as Christians, it's sort of knowing to go to the source. It's
Mm.
like we take on so many missions, um, values, things that aren't ours to carry, and we sometimes try to act like we're the ones who rule the world and hold all things together. And we have to realize, no, we just need to do our part and trust and believe that God will do his part and the rest. Like, we don't have, if I don't, the world will continue to spin.
That's
Like,
right.
the world will not collapse if, I took a break or if I took a vacation
Mm-hmm.
or if I said
Mm-hmm.
no to someone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's recognizing who you are and whose you
Mm.
are, and
Oh yeah.
staying on task.
Mm-hmm.
Because we like to go around and pick up other people's things, sometimes in the name of helping and
Mm-hmm.
you know doing the right, being nice and helpful. But sometimes it's us having a savior complex when we just need to leave that to God.
That's right.
So that's the only thing I would add. It's that spiritual component.
Two more books.
Let's
Boundaries.
have them. Which one?
Boundaries. Boundaries
Boundaries. Yes.
by Dr. Henry
The
Cloud.
cloud. Hmm.
So important for us to set boundaries, and you said it beautifully.
Yeah.
Essentialism.
Oh,
Um,
essentialism.
McKeon, I think, is the author, but he found that when he focused in on what was really his to do, that he
Hmm.
really got the joy out of and got rid of all those other pieces, he did so much better. He got
Mm.
promoted faster. He made more money. He grew his expertise because he was now fueled for it. And all those other things were weighing him down.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. We fear letting those go for what the boss will think about us, what our peers will think about us.
Yeah.
But he grew into being the expert and so well respected because he focused in on what he wanted to do.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Really good.
So you said it well.
Yeah. It's like we have a whole book book list going on in this episode.
We have to start a book club.
I know,
Yeah. Yeah.
seriously. No, but that's really good. I've really enjoyed this conversation,
Same here.
Don. I won't ask you any more questions and open up any other cans of worms.
Okay.
But I really thank you for coming on to the Soul Refresh podcast and just sharing your wisdom
Mhm.
and your insights with us. Before you go, I'll ask you one last question. I'll just give
Okay.
you an opportunity, more so not so much a question, but the space to just
Mhm.
share any parting words with our audience. What's one takeaway that you would want them to have from our conversation?
I think we've hit on it. It's know. I'm going to go back to your words. Know who you are and whose you are.
Hmm.
Right. Soul refresh. If you don't get those right, almost nothing else matters. Right. If you get married but you don't see yourself as a husband or wife, right, you're not going to fully live into it. If you have kids and you don't see yourself as that dad or mother, you're not going to live into it. If you don't see yourself as that officer or enlisted person or that corporate exec or whatever position, right, that manufacturing, if you don't see yourself in that role and live into it and do your best, yeah, and do it even if it's not for you or for the company, for God, right? Because
Yeah.
God put you there. God
Yeah.
created the opportunity and he put you there. So who you are and whose you are. I think you said it so well. I think that would be the only thing I would say. And just an opportunity. I would love for people who hear this and want to talk to me,
Yeah.
get on LinkedIn. I'm the only Don with a middle initial L, Gleason, and send me a note and say, hey, I met you here with Shoshana, excuse me,
Yeah, Shoshana.
and and on the Soul Refresh podcast. I'd love to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Conversations are free, and I promise you, I will give you some value. I will connect you to somebody. I'll give you some advice, depending on what you bring in. I'm particularly thinking people in career transition, but it could be
Yeah.
in any space because we've talked so much today.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, I promise you, I'll give you a book list.
Don't
I'll
be
promise
surprised.
you
That might
recommend
happen.
a book.
Look at all these books back here.
Right. No, that's really good. And yes, please reach out to Don and I will put his LinkedIn, and if you let me know any other socials that you're on
Okay.
in the descriptions for the episode. So please, yes, reach out to Don and
Okay.
talk with him. I'm sure you'll have a good conversation. But again, Don, thank you so much for joining this conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you. We touched on a lot of different
Mhm.
topics,
That was
and
great.
hopeful that the listeners will get lots of nuggets and gems from the
Mhm.
conversation because I know that I did. So thank you so much
Same here.
for joining, Don. And until
Thank you.
next time, we'll have to do a part two. Until next
Please,
time. Okay. All
let's
right.
do it.
Take care.
Bye bye.